Now I'd like to invite Mr. Kim, who is a PhD candidate in the Pusan National University in Korea. He studied modeling, evaluation of control strategies and automated system construction on wastewater treatment plants. And in addition, he's focusing on integrated management of sewage facilities. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pusan Kim, and my presentation title is Evaluation of Rule-Based Control Strategies according to process state diagnosis in A2 process. So far, the unexpected accidents have been occurred in wastewater treatment plant. These accidents were caused by the changing of influent flow rate and concentration, so-called influent disturbance, and by the fault of used equipment. And finally, the inattention behavior of human operators can cause the accident in wastewater treatment plant. Therefore, it is difficult to operate in the wastewater treatment plant stably for a long time. In order to overcome or solve these difficulties, the diagnosis technology and control strategies should be required. By using the diagnosis technologies, the comprehensive analysis information for the process present state of process can provide to human operators. And by applying the control strategies, the process stabilizations will be possible under the optimal efficiency. In previous studies, the diagnosis result for process state can only provide qualitative information to the human operators, and the quantitative control strategies cannot be provided. In addition, in the case of the control strategies, without process state information by using diagnosis technologies, the control actions were applied based on the mathematical equations or the empirical knowledge of human operators. Due to these limitations, the combination the diagnosis result and control strategies is needed. Therefore, the aim of this study is to develop the rule-based control strategies based on the diagnosis result of process state and evaluate the effect of the developed control strategies to pilot scale A2 process. The target process in this study is pilot scale A2 process that was located on SWTP, Busan, South Korea. The left side shows the whole entire systems. Firstly, the acquisition status are corrected in PLS system firstly, and then the corrected data is saved in database and identified in the monitoring system. Based on the acquisition data, the diagnosis system can calculate the process state, and the control system can transfer the proper set point to database by using the process state. And the set point can transfer to PLC systems, and finally the process can be operated by according to control signals. The influent flow rate of A2 process is about 18 cubic meters per day, and the internal recycle and external recycle flow rate was operated to influent flow rate proportionally. Each volume or each reactor volume is like this value. This flow chart shows the development for the development of process state diagnosis. The 9 variables, the ammonia, NOx, and phosphate in effluent and effluent, the DO and MLSS in aerobic reactors, and ORP in onyx tank were selected as input data. And next, the principal component analysis, one of the statistical techniques, was used to reduce the dimension of input data. By linear combination of variables, the new data sets explaining most of properties of original data sets could be derived. And The classification of groups was conducted by using the cluster analysis. In this case, the K-mean cluster analysis was used, and using the derived principles components species as input, the classification of groups with similar process properties can be done properly. And in order to derive the discriminant functions on each the classified groups, we use the Fisher's discriminant analysis. And finally, the diagnosis result of process state could be determined by using the derived discriminant functions. In case of the development of rule-based control strategies, the proper control actions for classified each group by diagnosis result were decided by using the mathematical models. In this study, the modified ASM3 biopin models were selected to describe the biological reactors, and one-dimensional double exponential models were selected to describe the secondary sectors. And by changing the manipulated variables within a certain range, the proper control actions for each group could be deduced. In this study, the controlled variables were ammonia and NOx in effluent, and manipulated variables were DO concentration and external carbon dose flow rate. This slide shows the one result of process state diagnosis, the PCA result. By using the PCA, the high dimension could be reduced, and three principal components can represent the nine variables properties. For example, the PC1 is highly affected by changing the influent ammonia and influent phosphate and effluent phosphate. And this value represents the coefficient of each variables in each species. The final species scores is calculated by multiplying this coefficient to each value of variables. As a result of cluster analysis, the original data sets could be classified as 4 groups. This table shows the qualitative information for each group. And this table summarizes the characteristic and the state of influent loading. I'm not showing these tables. Influent loading and influent and effluent. Ammonia and NOx in effluent. For example, the group 1, the state of the group 1, the influent loading is low state, and ammonia in effluent was middle state, and NOx in effluent was low state. Based on these states, the group 1 was considered the normal conditions. Similar to these considerations, the state of group 2 indicated the proper DO and the need of dose of external carbon source. And the state of group 3 indicated that increase of DO and dose of external carbon source was required. And the state of group 4 indicated the increase of DO concentration. And discriminant functions of each group could be decided like these equations. When new data sets was input, each species was calculated firstly, and by using each species, the group 1 to 4, the value of group 1 to 4 were calculated by using these equations. And finally, certain groups having the most large values was identified as the current groups. And based on the previous result, the rule for each group could be extracted like this. For deciding the quantitative control set point for each group, we used mathematical models and commercialized software GPXX. And as a result, the proper control set point for each group is decided as shown in these tables. For example, in the case of the group 3, the simulation was repeated by changing the DO concentration and dosing the external carbon source. As a result, in the case of DO 50% increases, the most lower value were identified, and when the external carbon source was dosed, then the effluent NOx concentration was decreased, lower than the initial values. Therefore, the first control set point for group 3 was set to 50% increased, and the second control set point was set to those of the external carbon until the 5 mg per liter effluent NOx concentration. And this flowchart shows the entire entire algorithms which combined in the diagnosis result and the rule-based control strategies. This part shows the present process state were identified. And in this part, the rule-based control strategies shows the application of rule-based control strategies for each groups. And this part, the maintenance or stop of control actions were determined. From this slide to next one, we shows the result of control application in pilot scale to process. In the case of without control actions, yes, the fixed aerations, the 18 RPM was fed in aerobic reactors, and the external carbon source does not fed it in anaxic reactors. As a result, the nitrifications and denitrifications were not occurred sufficiently, and therefore the high ammonia and NOx concentration were discharged. And in the case of the identified group, the group 1 that could be considered the normal conditions was only 4.8%, and group 3 and 4 that could be considered the abnormal conditions were about 33 and 62% respectively. In the contrast, when the rule-based control strategies according to process state diagnosis were applied in A2 process, the total 9 control actions were identified, and the dissolved oxygen DO concentration was controlled, and external carbon source was fed in anaxic reactors according to control actions. As a result, the effluent ammonia concentration was lower than the target value of 10 mg per liter, and effluent NOx was lower than the target values. This results indicated that enough aerations was fed in aerobic reactor, and therefore the nitrification reaction was occurred sufficiently. And also, when the NOx concentrations was increased, then the external carbon source was fed in anaxic reaction according to control actions. Then the effluent NOx concentration was decreased continuously. And the identified group, the group 1, the normal conditions was increased rather than the without control case. And group 3 and 4 that could be considered the abnormal conditions was decreased rather than the without control case. Conclusions. Applications of rule-based control strategies according to the process state diagnosis by applying that effluent water quality lower than the target ammonia and NOx concentrations were maintained. And through the comparison of without control and with control cases, the about 54% decrease of abnormal group portions were identified. And the interval of maintenance for control actions were minimum 4 hours and maximum 25 hours. Based on these results, the minimization of frequent change of process operational conditions and the reduction of the electrical load of equipment could be possible by using these rule-based control strategies. Thank you for your attention.
There's room for a couple of questions, yeah?
Linda Åhman at IVL in Stockholm. So you've essentially used multivariate statistics to create some sort of a rule-based feed-forward controller, since you assess the process state and then you create your control action.
Yes.
So my question is on the controller construction here. You don't get much robustness from such a system if you don't have a feedback loop too. Do you have a feedback loop, or you think about a feedback loop? Or?
Well, this strategy is also include the feedback control loop.
Okay, so
yes.
you also have like a safety
yes.
net here. Okay.
We already tested the feedback control strategies in the same process. Also, the feedback control strategies is very good, but we need the additional strategies to compensate the limitations of the feedback control loop. So we propose the rule-based control strategies like this.
A quick one extra. So when you say that the reference is without any control, what is the without control? Is it the open loop case, or is it?
We compared the control effect rather than the normal case. So without control, there is no DO control on additional external carbon source. With just the fixed RPM was maintained in process. Yes, that's so we just think that without control cases.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Yeah.
This is TK Wong from Hong Kong. Can you explain how you arrive at the interval of maintenance for the control action?
Internal maintenance.
The interval of maintenance for control action. Can you explain a little bit on how you arrive at minimum 4 hours and maximum 25 hours?
Right. We set the control intervals in our flow chart, the minimum 4 hours, where I explained were not. In this part, we checked the identified group was maintained just under 4 times. That means the 4 hours. When the when the same groups were maintained just under 4 times, then the control actions were changes or maintained continuously. So the minimum control actions were set to 4 hours, control intervals 4 hours, and the maximum is 25.
Do you have any rationale of minimum 4 hours and a maximum of 12 hours?
Well, it is not the current definitions how we why we selected the 4 hours, but it doesn't matter as the 5 times or 6 times. We just keep in these studies 4 times.
With a final question.
André Spanjers, TU Delft. In this type of nutrient removal, nitrogen removal process, it would be logic to manipulate the internal recirculation flow. And if I understand correctly, you kept this constant or in a constant ratio with the influent. Is that correct?
Yes, we fixed the internal flow rate.
Yeah. So why didn't you consider manipulating this instead of adding C source?
Yes. We first think that we considered as the manipulate variables that the internal and the DO concentration and external carbon source. But in our purpose to avoid the complexity of the control strategies, so we tested the first time in these studies the DO and external carbon source, and we added some the additional the manipulative variables. You mentioned some kind of internal recycle flow rate or external recycle flow rate. This is just the first attempt in the research. So when we hope to, or we have the additional the future plans to add the external internal recycle flow rate.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.